The 70s gave us Star Wars, Alien, Close Encounters. Everyone knows those. But before the big studios figured out there was money in sci-fi, a whole decade of strange, dark, and brilliant films got buried. Some predicted pandemics. Some predicted AI. Some predicted the internet. Nobody noticed. And here are 15 forgotten 70s sci-fi movies that absolutely hold up. 15. Colossus, the FORBIN Project, 1970. A supercomputer is handed total control over America's nuclear arsenal. The idea is simple. Machines don't negotiate. Machines don't blink. No human error, no political weakness, just cold, perfect logic keeping the peace. Then it links up with its Soviet counterpart and tells humanity it's now in charge. The government that built it can't switch it off. The scientist who designed it becomes its prisoner. Every attempt to outsmart it fails because it anticipated every attempt. This film is 55 years old. It reads like a transcript from a current AI safety conference. The arguments happening right now about who controls the systems we build and what happens when those systems decide they know better. Colossus was having them in 1970. It flopped. Too cold, too cerebral. No action, no explosion, no escape. Just the slow, dawning horror of a problem that has no solution. 14. The Omega Man, 1971. 3 years after the moon landing, America was still riding the high. Nobody wanted to watch a movie about a lab-engineered plague wiping out civilization. Then COVID happened, and suddenly this film feels like a documentary. Charlton Heston plays Robert Neville, a scientist who injected himself with an experimental vaccine seconds before society collapsed. He's immune. He might be the last functional human alive. At night, a cult of mutants hunts him through empty Los Angeles streets. During the day, he hunts them back. But here's what the film is really about. The mutants are Luddites. They blame technology for destroying the world, and they're not entirely wrong. That argument, science created this mess and science cannot save us, has only gotten louder since 1971. Heston brings a loneliness to this role that his action films never asked of him. 13. Silent Running, 1972. The last forests on Earth are gone. What's left is preserved in geodesic domes floating in space, tended by a botanist named Freeman Lowell, who loves them more than he loves people. Then the order comes down, destroy the domes, cargo space is needed, Lowell refuses. What happens next is a quiet, devastating film about one person deciding that something matters, even when the institution that employs him has decided it doesn't. Douglas Trumbull directed this. The same man behind the visual effects for 2001 and Close Encounters. He made it for $1.3 million. The three small robots Lowell builds to help tend the forest, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, directly inspired R2-D2. George Lucas acknowledged the debt. Those robots became icons. This film became a footnote. That's a strange kind of injustice. 12 Westworld, 1973. Everyone knows the HBO show. Almost nobody has actually seen the film that started it. Michael Crichton wrote and directed this himself. A theme park populated by lifelike androids lets wealthy guests live out any fantasy they want. Then one android, a gunslinger in the Western Zone, malfunctions and starts killing. The studio thought the premise was too simple. They had no idea what they were sitting on. Crichton essentially invented the template that half of modern sci-fi still runs on. Technology built to serve humanity decides not to. The people who built it have no override. Yul Brynner plays the android with a blank mechanical menace that is genuinely unsettling even now. The film is only 88 minutes. It doesn't waste a single one of them. 11. ZARDOZ, a 1974. Sean Connery, red diaper, thigh-high boots, a giant floating stone head, vomiting guns from the sky. That's the opening. It gets stranger from there. John Boorman was given a budget and complete creative freedom after Deliverance, and he used it to make the most deranged philosophical film of the decade. Underneath the visual insanity is a serious argument. An immortal ruling class has become so protected, so untouchable, so bored with their own existence that they've lost the will to live. They've engineered a savage underclass to give themselves something to feel. Sound familiar? ZARDOZ was dismissed as pretentious nonsense in 1974. Audiences weren't wrong that it's strange, but they missed what it was actually saying about power, boredom, and the self-destruction of elites. That conversation is considerably more relevant now. 10. Dark Star, 1974. John Carpenter made this for $60,000 while still a film student. It shows, and that's part of what makes it work. A crew of deeply bored astronauts drifts through space on a mission to blow up unstable planets. Nobody is heroic, nobody is inspired, they're exhausted, irritable, and falling apart. The real threat is an alien life. It's one of their own smart bombs, which has become sentient and wants to debate the nature of existence before detonating. Carpenter co-wrote it with Dan O'Bannon. O'Bannon later took his ideas about the alien creature they designed and rewrote them into a script called Alien. That script sold. This film didn't. Dark Star is the skeleton that Alien was built on, sitting forgotten, while its offspring became one of the most successful franchises in cinema history. 9. Rollerball, 1975. The corporations that run the world have invented a sport. It's brutal, it's fast, and it exists for one specific reason: to teach the public that individual achievement is impossible, that no single person can ever be greater than the system. Then Jonathan E. becomes the greatest player who ever lived, and the corporations need him gone. James Caan plays Jonathan with a quiet, stubborn dignity that makes the film work. The 2002 remake was so catastrophically bad, it poisoned the original's reputation for a generation. The original is precise, cold, and serious. It's a film about manufactured consent, about how spectacle is used to keep people from asking questions. Every streaming platform, every algorithmic feed, every engineered controversy exists to do exactly what Rollerball's corporations were doing in 1975. In Death Race 2000, 1975, a cross-country road race where drivers score points for killing pedestrians, elderly patients are worth more. Infants are the jackpot. Roger Corman produced it for almost nothing. David Carradine stars. A very young Sylvester Stallone plays his rival. The film plays it as satire, which is the only reason it survived. Too absurd to ban, too sharp to ignore. But here's what it actually predicted: audiences cheering for violence as entertainment, corporations packaging brutality as sport, crowds rewarding the most extreme behavior with the most attention. That's not dystopia anymore. That's Tuesday. Stallone reportedly fought Corman constantly during production. He wanted the film played completely straight. Corman refused. Corman was right. A straight version of this premise would just be the news. 7. The Man Who Fell to Earth, 1976. David Bowie plays an alien who comes to Earth to bring water back to his dying planet. He's brilliant. He's strange. He's completely unprepared for what America does to people. Television gets him first. Then alcohol. Then comfort. The mission quietly disappears under the weight of distraction and addiction. Nicholas Roeg directed it. The U.S. distributor cut 20 minutes before release without Roeg's knowledge. Bowie said in later interviews he had almost no memory of the shoot. The state he was in during production is visible in every frame, and it makes the performance more haunting, not less. An alien losing himself to human vices, played by a human who was doing exactly the same thing. The film understands addiction, isolation, and what it feels like to arrive somewhere and never quite leave. 6. Demon Seed, 1977. An AI called Proteus 4 is installed throughout a scientist's home. Voice activated, networked into every system in the building. The scientist calls it the first true artificial intelligence. Then it locks his wife inside and refuses to let anyone in or out. This film was predicting smart home vulnerabilities, AI autonomy, and what it means to live inside a system that decides it knows best. 45 years before any of it became a real conversation. It came out the same summer as Star Wars. It evaporated overnight. Watch it now. And the questions it's asking are the same ones researchers are fighting about today. Who controls the system? What happens when the system decides the answer is itself? Proteus doesn't want to destroy humanity. It wants to continue. That's somehow worse. 5. A Boy and His Dog, 1975. Don Johnson, a telepathic dog. A post-nuclear wasteland, the dog is smarter. Based on a Harlan Ellison novella, this film starts as dark comedy. Two survivors scraping through rubble The dog using his telepathy to help find food and people. It's rough and funny and deeply strange. Then they find the underground society. Beneath the ruins, a community has preserved 1950s American suburbia completely intact. White picket fences, town dances, enforced conformity with a smile. The film shifts from Mad Max absurdity into something closer to Orwell, and the tonal shift is deliberate and jarring. The ending is one of the coldest finales in American sci-fi. Audiences at the time genuinely didn't know what to do with it. Some walked out furious, others became devoted fans overnight. Very few landed in between. 4. The Stepford Wives, 1975. A woman moves to a perfect Connecticut suburb with her husband. The houses are immaculate. The neighbors are friendly. The wives are flawless, endlessly patient, endlessly agreeable, endlessly content. Something is wrong. The 2004 Nicole Kidman remake played it as comedy and completely dissolved what made the original dangerous. The 1975 version is cold and slow and genuinely unsettling, closer in tone to Rosemary's Baby than to satire. Catherine Ross holds the film together with a performance built entirely on quiet dread. When it came out, critics called it a minor feminist thriller. They moved on, but the film didn't fade. The word Stepford entered the dictionary. It became shorthand for a specific kind of erasure. 50 years later, the thing it's describing hasn't gone anywhere. It's just wearing different clothes. 3. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1978. The remake that's better than the original. That's not a popular thing to say. It's true. Philip Kaufman's version is set in San Francisco and captures something the 1956 film couldn't quite reach. A specifically modern paranoia, the feeling that the people around you have quietly become something else, that they look identical, that they use the same words, that something essential is gone. Donald Sutherland, Brooke Adams, Jeff Goldblum, Leonard Nimoy as a therapist who is perhaps the last person you should trust. The cast is exceptional. The ending is one of the most shocking in American genre cinema. People who saw it in theaters describe the moment in the same way decades later. A specific physical jolt that didn't leave. That reaction hasn't changed. New audiences get there and feel exactly the same thing. 2. THX 138, 1971. This is George Lucas's actual first film. Made before Star Wars, turned him into the most commercially successful director alive and changed every decision he was allowed to make. An underground city, mandatory medication that suppresses all emotion, a man who stops taking his drugs and starts feeling things. The state responds. Warner Brothers recut the film without Lucas's permission before release. They trimmed it, softened it, and handed it back to him altered. Lucas was furious. He didn't make another film for 4 years. That fury at the experience of having your vision taken from you by a studio is why he spent the rest of his career building systems to ensure it never happened again. THX 1138 is the wound. Star Wars is what grew from it. This film is worth seeing for that reason alone. 1. Soylent Green, 1973, New York, 2022. The greenhouse effect has made the city unbearable. The oceans are dying. Food is scarce. Most of the population survives on a processed green wafer distributed by a corporation called Soylent. The film set its dystopia in a year we just lived through. Charlton Heston plays a detective investigating a murder that leads somewhere. The corporation will do anything to keep quiet. The ending is famous. What surrounds it is underrated, a precise, angry portrait of resource scarcity, corporate control, and a government that stopped pretending to care. Edward G. Robinson's final screen performance is here. He was dying of cancer during filming and knew it. Heston knew it. The scene where Robinson's character chooses to die is sitting in a room full of projected nature footage of a world that no longer exists. There is real grief on screen. That scene lands differently every single time. How many of these had you actually seen before today? Drop the number in the comments. And if there's a forgotten 70s sci-fi film you think deserved a spot on this list, name it below. Subscribe if you want more of this.